Is that Obina's ex-wife?
She was supposed to be poor.
Look at her. Look at those boys. They carry themselves like royalty.
Can you believe it?
She's here!
A billionaire CEO invited his poor ex-wife to shame her in front of everyone. But when she arrived in a red Ferrari with her 2 sons, the truth he tried to hide shocked the entire hall. Welcome to a world where love, betrayal, power, and secrets collide. Here, every story will shock you. Every twist will leave you breathless. From billionaire CEOs to hidden family secrets, from heartbreak to redemption. Hit that subscribe button, turn on the bell notification, and never miss a twist. And if you enjoy the stories, don't forget to like, share, and spread the drama. The humid air of Lagos carried with it the smell of roasted suya from street vendors and the faint hum of traffic horns that never seemed to rest. But high above the bustling streets, inside a glass tower that touched the skyline, Chief Obinna Nwosu, billionaire CEO of Nwosu Holdings, sat in his office with a smug smile stretched across his face. His office was an empire in itself. Gold-framed paintings, imported Italian furniture, and a panoramic view of Victoria Island glittering with lights. He swirled a glass of Hennessy in his hand, his eyes narrowing at the thought of the woman who once shared his last name, Ngozi. Poor woman, he muttered, smirking. She thought love could feed her. She thought humility was wealth. Now look at her, struggling, forgotten, nothing. Obinna had divorced Ngozi years ago when his company first touched success. She had stood by him when he was still a struggling young man, hustling in the markets of Balagun, counting coins and dreaming big. But the moment he tasted real power and wealth, he began to see her as a burden, too simple, too poor, too ordinary for a man of his status. He replaced her with Adeze, a wealthy socialite from a powerful family, whose presence boosted his business connections and his standing in high society. To Obinna, marriage was less about love and more about leverage. But tonight, he had something different in mind. His company was celebrating its 20th anniversary gala, an event that would gather politicians, business magnates, Nollywood stars, and the creme of Nigerian high society. Everything was planned to perfection: red carpets, flashing cameras, expensive champagne flown in from France, and a live band playing Afrobeat classics. Yet for Chief Obinna, the highlight of the night wouldn't be the gala itself. It would be his grand move, the humiliation of his ex-wife. He leaned forward and pressed a button on his desk phone. "Chica," he barked at his secretary. "Send this invitation to Ngozi. Make sure it reaches her directly. And tell the driver to wait until she accepts it." The secretary's voice trembled. "Yes, sir. But, sir, are you sure? Inviting Madame Ngozi might—" "Silence!" Obinna snapped. His voice boomed through the office. "I want her there. I want her to walk in with her worn-out shoes and faded dress while the cameras flash on her misery. I want society to see how far I have risen and how low she has fallen." His secretary lowered her voice. "Yes, Chief. It will be done." Obinna leaned back, satisfied. His plan was simple. Once Ngozi appeared at the gala, looking poor and desperate, he would make a spectacle of her in front of everyone, showing the world that leaving her was the smartest decision of his life. Meanwhile, across town, in a quiet neighborhood of Surulere, Ngozi was seated at a small dining table with her 2 sons, Chinedu and Kamsi. Her home was modest but warm, filled with the smell of jollof rice cooking on the stove, and decorated with the laughter of her boys. Chinedu, the elder at 16, was tall, broad-shouldered, and already carried himself with quiet confidence. Kamsi, 12, was sharp-eyed and quick-tongued, always ready with a witty remark. As they ate, there was a knock on the door. Ngozi wiped her hands on her wrapper and opened it to find a uniformed driver holding out a golden envelope. Good evening, madam, the driver said respectfully. This is from Chief Obinna. Ngozi's eyes flickered with surprise, but she remained calm. She took the envelope and closed the door before opening it. Inside was an invitation, engraved with gold letters. Nwosu Holdings 20th Anniversary Gala. You are cordially invited to celebrate success, progress, and greatness. She stared at the card for a moment, her heart steady. She knew exactly why Obinna wanted her there. It wasn't kindness. It wasn't reconciliation. It was mockery. He wanted to display her as a relic of his past, a past he believed was beneath him. Her sons noticed her silence. Mama? Chinedu asked. What is it? Ngozi looked at him, then at Kamzi, and smiled softly. It is an invitation to your father's celebration. The boys exchanged glances. They had heard enough about their father to know he was a man of pride and arrogance. Are you going to go? Kamzi asked, tilting his head. Ngozi closed the envelope and placed it carefully on the table. Her voice was calm but firm. Yes, she said. We will go. Chinedu frowned. But Mama, you know what he wants. He wants to embarrass you. Ngozi's eyes glowed with quiet strength. My sons, remember this. No one can shame you unless you allow them to. A queen remains a queen, whether she sits on a golden throne or a wooden chair. If he thinks I will bow my head, then he has forgotten who I am. Her sons nodded slowly, inspired by her words. Ngozi leaned back, her mind already made up. She would go to that gala, but not as the broken woman Obinna expected. She would walk in with her head high and with her two sons by her side. And as she glanced at the car keys lying on the counter, the keys to her crimson Ferrari 488, a car she had worked hard to afford, a calm smile curved her lips. Let him wait, she whispered to herself. The night will not go as he planned. Victoria Island's most luxurious hotel, Echo Convention Center, glowed like a diamond against the Lagos night. The red carpet rolled across the entrance, lined with photographers snapping pictures as black SUVs, Bentleys, and Lamborghinis pulled up one after another. Security guards in dark suits stood like statues, their earpieces flashing as they scanned every guest. It wasn't just a gala. It was the event of the year. Nwosu Holdings' 20th Anniversary Gala was broadcast live on several TV stations. Hashtags already trending on Twitter and Instagram. Nwosu Galatwo 1025.10 Lagos High Society. Inside, the hall was decorated with towering crystal chandeliers, silk drapes in green and gold, Nigeria's pride, and tables dressed with champagne bottles, golden cutlery, and exotic flowers. A live Afrobeat band tuned their instruments as servers in tuxedos moved about gracefully. The city's elite had gathered. Governors, oil magnates, Nollywood stars in glittering gowns, and international investors flown in from London and Dubai. The air was filled with pride, envy, and whispers of business deals. At the center of it all stood Chief Obinna, dressed in a custom Italian suit, diamond cufflinks gleaming under the lights. His second wife, Adeyeze, stood beside him in a shimmering silver gown, flaunting her jewelry for every flashing camera. Obinna shook hands with politicians, laughed with fellow businessmen, and posed for photographs. But deep inside, his mind wasn't on the deals or the celebration. His eyes flickered toward the entrance every few minutes. He was waiting for her. "Chief! You look unstoppable tonight," said one of his associates, clapping him on the back. "Unstoppable, yes," Obinna replied with a smile that carried arrogance. "And tonight, everyone will see the difference between winners and losers." Outside, the reporters buzzed as yet another celebrity arrived. Then, suddenly, the steady hum of the crowd was broken by a powerful roar. A sleek crimson-red Ferrari 488 Spider turned the corner. its headlights slicing through the Lagos night. The crowd gasped. Cameras flashed like lightning. This was no ordinary car in a country where Rolls-Royce and G-Wagons were common among the rich. A Ferrari still turned heads. The car slowed to a stop on the red carpet, its polished body gleaming under the spotlights. The engine purred like a lion, demanding attention. The driver's side door opened. Out stepped Ngozi. She was radiant, dressed in an elegant green Ankara gown stitched with golden embroidery, her head wrap tied regally. She looked every bit the queen she had always been. The glow on her skin, the calm dignity in her eyes. She wasn't the poor ex-wife Obinna expected. She was transformed. The murmurs spread like wildfire. Who is that? Wait, is that Ngozi? No way, she was supposed to be struggling. Look at that Ferrari. Look at her confidence. Before the whispers could settle, the Ferrari's other doors opened. Two young men stepped out, Chinedu and Kamsi. Chinedu, tall and broad, wore a black tailored suit with a crisp white shirt, looking like a future leader. His gaze was steady, his chin held high. Beside him, Kamsi adjusted his bow tie and grinned at the flashing cameras, already stealing hearts with his sharp eyes and playful charm. They stood beside their mother, both placing a hand protectively on her shoulders as photographers went wild. "Who are they?" a reporter whispered. "They must be her sons. But look at them, they look like royalty." Ngozi smiled gently and walked forward, each step on the red carpet commanding respect. Her sons walked proudly by her side, like princes entering a palace. Inside the hall, Obinna's laughter froze when he heard the commotion at the entrance. The master of ceremonies announced over the mic, "Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Madame Ngozi Nwosu." The entire hall turned. Guests craned their necks. Murmurs rippled across the room. And then the doors opened. Ngozi entered. The glow from the chandeliers reflected off her gown, her sons flanking her like a royal guard. The sound of camera shutters followed her every step. Obinna's glass nearly slipped from his hand. His eyes widened, his jaw tightened. This wasn't the image he had prepared for. There was no poverty, no shame. Instead, his ex-wife looked more powerful than ever. Adize whispered sharply, "Obinna, you didn't tell me she looked like this." Obinna forced a smile, but his face betrayed his fury. "Don't worry," he muttered under his breath. "This is my stage. She may look like a queen, but tonight, I will make sure everyone remembers she is nothing." It said choir, but as Ngozi walked further into the hall, heads turning, whispers growing louder, even Obinna began to feel something he had not felt in years: fear. Because tonight, it was clear. The battle he had planned was not going to be so simple. The music inside the grand hall swelled as the Afrobeat band struck their first note, but the rhythm could not drown the buzz sweeping through the crowd. Guests whispered behind their champagne glasses, their eyes fixed on Ngozi and her sons as they walked with poise through the sea of glittering gowns and tuxedos. A Nollywood actress leaned toward a politician's wife and whispered loudly enough for others to hear, "That's Chief Obinna's ex-wife. Didn't he leave her because she was poor?" The woman's eyes widened. "Poor? Look at her now. She's glowing. And those boys, they carry themselves like royalty." On another table, two businessmen chuckled nervously. "I thought Chief was going to shame her tonight." "Shame her? My brother. I think she's the one stealing the spotlight." The whispers spread, each one like a dagger piercing Obinna's pride. Nosy and her sons found their assigned seats near the front. It was no coincidence Obinna had arranged it so the cameras would capture her every move, her supposed humiliation. But instead, it worked against him. Every flash of the camera highlighted her elegance. Every glance from the crowd magnified her dignity. Kamsi, the younger son, leaned closer to his mother and whispered with a mischievous grin, Mama, everyone is staring at us. I think I look more handsome than half the celebrities here. Thanks for watching. Ngozi chuckled softly, patting his hand. Confidence, my son, but never arrogance. Chinedu, calm and observant, kept scanning the room. His eyes finally landed on his father across the hall. Their gazes locked a moment, heavy with unspoken history. Chinedu didn't flinch. Instead, he sat taller, as if to silently say, "We are not afraid of you." At the center stage, Obinna took the microphone, forcing a wide smile as the crowd cheered. "Distinguished guests, friends, and partners," his voice boomed. "Tonight we celebrate 20 years of Nwosu Holdings. 20 years of growth, success, and power." The hall erupted in applause. But Obinna's eyes kept flickering toward Ngozi. He could not stand the calm on her face, the pride in her son's posture. He wanted her broken, not radiant. So, he made his move. "As we honor this great journey," Obinna continued, "I would like to recognize someone from my past, someone who once shared in the humble beginnings of this company, before we rose to greatness." The crowd leaned in, curious. Cameras shifted toward Ngozi instinctively. Obinna spread his arms dramatically. "Please, let us welcome my ex-wife Ngozi," the hall murmured. Guests clapped politely, though the tone was awkward. All eyes turned to her. Ngozi rose gracefully, her son standing beside her. She walked to the stage with the dignity of a queen, each step silent but powerful. She stopped just a few feet from Obinna, her chin held high. Obinna smirked, turning to the audience. "Ladies and gentlemen, once upon a time, this woman was my partner. She came from nothing, and, well..." He paused, letting the words hang. "Nothing is what she remains." Gasps rippled through the crowd. Some guests exchanged uneasy glances. It was a cruel remark, even for Obinna. Ngozi didn't flinch. Her sons stepped forward protectively, Chinedu's jaw tightening, Kamsi glaring like a young lion. Ngozi's voice, calm but strong, filled the microphone. "Chief Obinna," she said, addressing him formally, "you are mistaken. You measure wealth by the cars you drive and the houses you build. I measure wealth by the strength to rise after falling, by the dignity that cannot be bought, and by the sons I raised with honor." The hall went silent. Obinna's smirk faltered. Kamsi, unable to resist, added cheekily, "And in case you missed it, Papa, that Ferrari outside doesn't run on nothing." The crowd erupted in laughter and applause. Even some of Obinna's business partners chuckled, trying to hide their smiles. Obinna's face turned red with rage, but there was nothing he could say. For the first time in years, Ngozi had turned the tables, and the night was just beginning. The hall was still buzzing from Kamsi's bold remark. The laughter had not only embarrassed Chief Obinna, but also shifted the energy of the night. Where once people expected to see Ngozi humiliated, now they were curious, even impressed. Ngozi returned to her seat with her sons, her head held high. Chinedu walked with the calmness of a young leader, while Kamsi still wore that mischievous smile, proud of the blow he had just landed on his father. At nearby tables, conversations erupted. "Did you see how confidently she handled him?" A wealthy businesswoman whispered. "Yes. And her boys. Ah, they look so well trained, so well educated." "That cannot be the work of poverty," replied another. Across the hall, a senator leaned toward his wife. "Tell me, don't those boys look familiar?" His wife raised a brow. "Familiar how?" He lowered his voice. "Look at the taller one, his face, his jawline. Doesn't he look exactly like Chief Obinna when he was young?" His wife gasped softly, covering her mouth. It is true. That resemblance is too strong to ignore. And so it began the whispers. Obina stood at the stage, trying to regain control. He forced another smile, pretending as though nothing had gone wrong. "Ladies and gentlemen," he said, voice tight, "let us focus on the true purpose of tonight. Celebrating my achievements. The empire I have built." But no one was listening. The guests were more interested in the quiet drama unfolding. They exchanged glances, tilted their heads toward Ngozi's table, and whispered behind manicured hands. By now, half the room was murmuring the same thing. Those boys look like his sons. At Ngozi's table, the waiter poured champagne into their glasses. Kamzi sipped on his juice, eyes darting mischievously around the room. "Mama," he whispered, "they're all staring at us. I think I've become a celebrity tonight." Ngozi chuckled, her voice calm. "Let them stare. It is not you they see, my son. It is the truth that frightens them." Chinedu, more serious, leaned closer. "Mama, they are whispering about us. I can feel it. They know." Ngozi met his gaze, her expression steady. "They may suspect, but what matters is not their gossip. What matters is the men you are becoming. Let your actions speak louder than rumors." Meanwhile, at the front of the hall, Adaize's patience was wearing thin. She leaned toward her husband, her voice sharp but low. "Obina, what is this nonsense? You told me she was poor and forgotten. You told me she would be humiliated tonight. But look around you. People are admiring her and those boys." She trailed off, her eyes narrowing. "Those boys, they look like you." Obina's jaw tightened. "Nonsense. They are not mine." But Adaize was not convinced. Her eyes burned with suspicion. She had always known her husband was a man of secrets. But tonight, those secrets threatened to spill out under the brightest lights in Lagos. The master of ceremonies took the mic again, trying to bring order. "Ladies and gentlemen, please enjoy your dinner while we prepare for the awards presentation." Soft, high-life music filled the air, and waiters began serving plates of peppered fish, jollof rice, and roasted plantain. Yet the whispers never stopped. One Nollywood actor nudged his friend. "I swear, if those boys are not his sons, then I am not standing here. The resemblance is too clear." His friend laughed. "Then imagine the disgrace. The man divorced her to climb higher, but she raised his own blood to shine brighter." The thought spread through the crowd like wildfire, turning admiration into silent judgment. At the head table, Obina raised his glass, but his hands trembled slightly. His carefully planned humiliation had slipped away, replaced with a storm he could no longer control. He could feel it, his empire of pride, his image of superiority beginning to crack. And as he looked across the hall, his eyes met Ngozi's. She wasn't smiling arrogantly, nor gloating. She simply sat there, with quiet dignity, her sons beside her, like two strong pillars. That silent confidence was worse than any insult, because deep inside, Obina knew. The more she stayed calm, the more the world would side with her. Dinner was being served, but hardly anyone was focused on the food. The aroma of smoky jollof rice, grilled fish, and spicy suya filled the air, yet the guests' attention remained locked on Ngozi and her two sons. Everywhere she turned, eyes followed her. Some curious, some admiring, others jealous. The whispers had now grown into louder murmurs, and a few bold individuals even began to approach her table. A prominent senator's wife walked up first, smiling warmly. "Madam Ngozi, it has been such a long time. You look radiant." Ngozi rose gracefully and greeted her. "Thank you. It is good to see you again." The woman's eyes shifted to the boys beside her. "And these handsome young men must be your sons. My goodness, they are so well-mannered, so polished. Please, introduce them. Ngozi placed a hand on Chinedu's shoulder. This is my eldest, Chinedu. He is 16. And this, she said, smiling at Kamsi, is Kamsi. He is 12. The senator's wife leaned closer, lowering her voice. Forgive me, but they remind me so much of their father. Ngozi's smile never wavered. They remind me of strength, resilience, and God's grace, she replied calmly. The woman blushed at her dignified response and quickly excused herself. Meanwhile, Chinedu noticed the growing attention and leaned toward his brother. Kamsi, don't let it get to your head. This isn't about us, but Kamsi smirked. Maybe not about us, but look how uncomfortable Papa is getting. For once, I like being the center of attention. He wasn't wrong. From the head table, Chief Obina's anger was boiling. He clenched his fists under the table, watching as his ex-wife and sons drew admiration from the very people he had wanted to impress. His second wife, Adayez, sat fuming beside him. Her lips pressed into a thin line. Obina couldn't let this continue. He needed to shift the narrative to drag Ngozi back down in front of everyone. He rose suddenly and walked to the stage. The microphone squealed as he took it in his hand. Ladies and gentlemen, he said, forcing confidence into his voice. Tonight we are not only celebrating my company, but also the future of Nigeria. The future lies in the hands of our children. Children who will grow into leaders, innovators, and change-makers. He gestured dramatically toward Ngozi's table. And speaking of children, perhaps Madame Ngozi's sons would like to come up and say a few words. Let us see what they are made of. The hall gasped. Everyone knew what he was trying to do, put them on the spot, hoping they would stumble and embarrass themselves. Ngozi's eyes met her son's. She saw the trap clearly, but before she could say anything, Chinedu stood. His tall frame commanded attention as he straightened his suit. We would be honored, he said in a steady voice. Kamsi jumped up beside him, grinning. Yes, let's give them something to talk about. The crowd chuckled at his youthful confidence. Together, the two boys walked to the stage, their steps firm, their heads high. Chinedu reached the microphone first. He glanced at his father, then at the audience. His voice was calm, deep for his age. Good evening, everyone. My name is Chinedu Nwosu. My mother raised me to believe that greatness is not in the wealth you inherit, but in the values you live by. She taught me discipline, integrity, and the courage to never give up. For that, I owe her everything. A ripple of applause swept through the hall. Some guests even stood to clap. Obina's smile froze. This was not what he expected. Then Kamsi stepped forward, adjusting the microphone down to his height. His grin was mischievous, his eyes bright. My name is Kamsi, he began. I'm only 12, so I don't know much about business. But I know this, my mama is the strongest person I have ever seen. She doesn't drive a Ferrari because she wants to show off. She drives it because she can. She worked hard for it, and she raised us without needing help from anyone. That's what I call true success. The hall erupted in applause, louder than before. Some people whistled. Others shouted, "Well said." Obina's face turned pale. The cameras captured every second, broadcasting it across Nigeria. His own attempt to shame them had turned into their triumph. Nosy, seated below, allowed herself a quiet smile. Her sons had not only defended her dignity, they had stolen the stage. And for the first time, Obina realized that his power over her was slipping through his fingers. The applause for Chinedu and Kamsi still echoed in the hall, long after the boys had returned to their mother's side. Guests buzzed with excitement, whispering loudly enough for Obina to hear every word. Such eloquence! At that age? Remarkable! That woman raised kings, and they look so much like him. Do you not see the resemblance? Obina sat frozen at the head table, his smile stretched too wide, his jaw tight. His plan to shame Ngozi had backfired so badly it felt like the floor beneath him was crumbling. Beside him, Adeze leaned in, her voice a venomous hiss. "Obina, are you mad? Why would you put them on stage? You've humiliated yourself." He glared at her, whispering sharply. "Be silent, Adeze. Do you want people to notice?" "They already notice!" she snapped under her breath. "Look around you. Everyone is whispering, and not about me, not about you, but about her. That ex-wife of yours. Those boys are stealing the show." Obina's hand tightened around his wineglass. He could feel his control slipping, and Adize's words were like salt in an open wound. Across the hall, Ngozi remained calm. She sat with poise, her head held high, though her heart pounded with pride. Chinedu and Kamzi had exceeded even her expectations. They weren't just surviving in this wealthy world, they were commanding it. A wealthy businessman, Chief Eze, came over to greet her. "Ngozi, my dear, it is an honor. Your sons are impressive. If they are looking for opportunities in my firm, the door will always be open." Ngozi smiled graciously. "Thank you, Chief. They are still young, but I will remember your kind offer." Other guests followed suit, some offering internships, some offering scholarships, others simply bowing in admiration. It was clear now. In this battle for dignity, Ngozi was winning without even raising her voice. Meanwhile, the rumors had reached boiling point. Two women near the buffet table whispered not so quietly. "Are you blind? Those boys are the spitting image of Obina. I heard they are his real sons. He abandoned them when he left her. Shameful. And to think he pretends to be a family man." The whispers traveled like wildfire, leaping from one cluster of guests to another, until almost every person in the hall was discussing it. Some shook their heads in disgust, others exchanged knowing glances. Obina could feel their eyes boring into him. The weight of silent judgment pressed down like a mountain. Back at the table, Adiaze's temper finally snapped. She turned on her husband, her voice sharp enough to cut through the buzz. "Obina, tell me the truth. Are those boys yours?" The table fell silent. Several heads turned their way. Cameras nearby zoomed in. Obina's chest tightened. He wanted to roar at her, to silence her, but his tongue felt heavy. Adeze leaned closer, her tone venomous. "Answer me now. Did you leave her with your children, only to marry me for my father's money?" Ngozi's lips curved into the faintest smile. She hadn't spoken a word, yet the storm was tearing her ex-husband apart. Obina finally stood, slamming his glass onto the table. "This conversation is private," he barked. But the damage was already done. The guests weren't blind. The boy's resemblance, the timing, the whispers, it all added up. A murmur rose, like the roar of an ocean wave. They are his sons. Freezing day. He left them. How disgraceful. And in that moment, Obina, the mighty billionaire CEO, found himself shrinking under the weight of scandal. The atmosphere in the banquet hall had shifted completely. The earlier laughter and polite conversations had vanished, replaced by a thick tension. Everywhere, eyes were fixed on the head table where Obina stood, trembling with rage, his second wife glaring at him like a wounded lioness. "Obina!" Adeze hissed loudly, loud enough for the hall to hear. "You cannot deny what is right in front of us. Those boys are yours, aren't they?" Gasps rippled through the crowd. Camera flashes exploded as journalists captured the unfolding drama. Obina's face glistened with sweat under the bright chandeliers. He forced a hollow laugh, his voice cracking. "Please, my guests, do not listen to idle gossip. People will say anything when they see a successful man. These children," he paused, searching for words, "they are not my responsibility." Ngozi finally raised her eyes and locked them on him. Calm, cold. Not your responsibility, she said softly, but the microphone nearby caught every word. Perhaps not in your eyes, but you cannot erase blood, Obinna. The hall erupted with whispers again. Obinna's knees nearly buckled under the weight of judgment. Chinedu, who had been silent, suddenly rose from his chair. His tall frame and commanding presence silenced the murmurs. He walked up to the stage slowly, deliberately, until he stood just a few feet from his father. His voice was steady, resonant, far beyond his years. I have heard enough. Forza! The hall froze. Chinedu turned to face the crowd, his expression calm but his eyes burning. Yes, he is our father. He left us, but our mother never let us feel abandoned. She worked day and night so we could stand proudly before you today. If greatness runs in our veins, it comes not from the man who left, but from the woman who stayed. The hall thundered with applause. Guests stood on their feet, clapping, whistling, cheering. Some even shouted, "Bravo!" Obinna's face drained of color. His plan to shame Ngozi had now shattered into a public declaration of his betrayal. But then came the twist. Kamzi, unable to hold himself back, rushed onto the stage and grabbed the microphone from his brother. "My brother speaks truth," he said with youthful boldness. "But I will add one more thing. My father may have left us, but he gave us something too. He gave us the strength to prove him wrong every single day." The applause grew louder, almost shaking the hall. Guests clapped until their palms stung, their cheers rising like a victorious anthem. Even those who had once looked down on Ngozi were now praising her resilience, her strength, her dignity. Ngozi sat quietly at her table, tears welling in her eyes, though her smile remained steady. Her sons had spoken the truth with more grace and power than she could have imagined. Adeze turned away from her husband in disgust, muttering, "You are finished, Obinna. Finished." And Obinna, for the first time in his powerful career, he felt small, insignificant, and utterly defeated. The hall still echoed with applause for Chinedu and Kamzi. The sound of admiration felt like daggers piercing Obinna's pride. His carefully curated image of power and dignity was slipping through his fingers like sand. Adeze turned her back on him, folding her arms, her face full of contempt. Guests openly whispered now, not even pretending to hide their words. Such shame. Abandoning his own blood. He will never recover from this scandal. Obinna's pulse raced. He couldn't let it end this way. He grabbed the microphone with trembling hands, forcing a smile that looked more like a grimace. "Ladies and gentlemen," he boomed, though his voice cracked. "Please, let us not be distracted. Tonight is not about petty family matters. Tonight is about celebrating my empire, my success, and the bright future ahead." His words fell flat. Nobody clapped. The silence stung worse than the whispers. Desperation overtook him. He puffed his chest, speaking louder. "And to show my generosity and strength, I will make an announcement. Tonight," he paused for effect, "I will donate 10 million naira to the Children's Trust Foundation. Because unlike others, I care about children in need." He cast a pointed glance at Ngozi, hoping to turn the narrative. For a moment, the crowd murmured in surprise. 10 million naira was no small donation. Obinna smirked, convinced he had regained control. But then, a voice from the back rang out. "How noble of you, Chief Obinna. But tell us, did you donate to your own children when they needed you?" The entire hall gasped. Heads turned to see who had spoken. It was Mr. Adewale, an influential business rival who had never missed a chance to humiliate Obinna. He stepped forward, microphone in hand, his eyes gleaming. Throwing money in the air is easy when you want cameras to praise you. But raising children with love and responsibility? That is the true test of a man. And from what I see tonight, Madame Ngozi has passed that test better than you ever could. The hall erupted in thunderous applause, louder than ever before. Guests clapped, some even stomping their feet in agreement. Obina's jaw dropped. His face turned crimson. His donation had turned into a weapon against him. Ngozi, still seated, gave a small nod of gratitude toward Adewale, then looked at her sons with pride. She didn't need to say anything. The hall had already chosen its victor. Adeze hissed into her husband's ear, her voice dripping with venom. You thought you could shame her. But tonight, you have only shamed yourself. You are a fool, Obina. For the first time in his life, the billionaire CEO felt powerless. No amount of money could silence the truth that was now echoing across Lagos society. Obina's chest rose and fell rapidly. His rivals had mocked him. His guests had turned on him. And even his own wife had humiliated him. His empire of respect was crumbling in front of the cameras. But his pride, his cursed pride, would not allow him to accept defeat quietly. He snatched the microphone again, his voice shaking with fury. Enough! The hall went silent. Guests froze with their glasses mid-air. Cameras zoomed in, and even the band stopped playing. Obina's eyes blazed as he pointed directly at Ngozi. You all think she is some saint? Let me tell you the truth. That woman, he jabbed a finger at her, is nothing without me. She was poor, helpless, worthless. Everything she has today is because I once lifted her from the dirt. Do not be fooled by her little act. Gasps echoed through the hall. Some guests muttered in disapproval. Others shook their heads at the cruelty. But Obina wasn't finished. And those boys? He sneered. Yes, they may carry my blood, but they are nothing without my name. Without me, they are nobodies just like their mother. A deadly silence followed. Ngozi remained seated, her face calm, though her hands clenched in her lap. Her silence was deliberate. It was not her battle to fight anymore. Before she could even rise, Chinedu stood up once more. His tall figure commanded the room as he walked back to the stage. His eyes locked on his father with a mixture of pity and quiet strength. He took the microphone, his voice steady. You call my mother worthless? Then let me remind you of something, father. The word father landed like a thunderclap. Obina flinched. Chinedu continued, his voice firm and unwavering. Do you remember when you left us with nothing? When we had no money for school fees? Mama sold her jewelry, every single piece, so I could stay in class. She worked 3 jobs so Kamsi could eat. She carried us, not you. And yet, we stand here today, stronger than ever. The hall erupted in murmurs of sympathy. Some guests had tears in their eyes, but Chinedu wasn't finished. He turned to face the crowd fully, his next words sharp as a blade. And let the world know this truth. My mother didn't just raise us. She built her own empire. Today, she owns a thriving export company worth more than some of you sitting in this hall. She did it without his money, without his name, and we are proud to bear hers. The crowd erupted. Applause thundered like never before. Guests stood to their feet, clapping, cheering, chanting her name. Nosy, nosy, nosy! Obina's face turned ghostly white. The revelation struck harder than any insult. His ex-wife wasn't just surviving, she was thriving. And now, the entire Nigerian elite knew it. At her table, Ngozi finally rose, tears glistening in her eyes. She didn't speak, but her proud smile told the world everything it needed to know. Adayes buried her face in her hands, muttering bitterly, God, what kind of man did I marry? And Obina? He stood frozen on stage, his empire of lies collapsing as his own son destroyed the illusion he had spent years building. The chant of nosy, nosy, nosy still echoed through the grand banquet hall, shaking the very walls. The billionaire CEO who once commanded fear now stood trembling on stage, his empire of respect reduced to ashes. Obinna clutched the microphone, his lips quivering. For the first time, there was no arrogance in his voice, only desperation. "Please, listen to me," he begged. I made mistakes, yes, but I am still your host tonight. I am still—" His words were drowned out by laughter and scoffs. Guests whispered openly now, not even trying to hide their disgust. Shameless, begging like a common thief. And to think we once admired him. Adies, unable to bear the humiliation any longer, ripped off her diamond necklace and slammed it on the table. "I married a lie," she spat. "Your name means nothing now." Then she stormed out, cameras flashing as she left him alone. Obinna stood frozen, abandoned by his own wife, his reputation in ruins. Meanwhile, Ngozi rose gracefully from her table. She adjusted her elegant Ankara gown, her head held high, her sons standing proudly on either side of her. The crowd parted for her like the Red Sea, murmuring in awe. As she walked toward the exit, reporters rushed forward with cameras and microphones. "Madam Ngozi, any words for the people of Lagos?" She paused, her calm eyes reflecting the chandelier lights. "Yes," she said softly but firmly. "A woman's worth is not defined by the man who leaves her. It is defined by the strength she finds to rise again." The hall exploded in applause. Even rivals, senators, and business magnates rose to their feet, clapping until their palms burned. Chinedu and Kamsi each took one of her hands. Together, the three of them walked out, dignity radiating from every step. Outside, the red Ferrari gleamed under the nightlights, its polished surface reflecting the flash of cameras. A chauffeur opened the door respectfully. Ngozi slid into the back seat, her sons following. Chinedu glanced back once, seeing his father stumble out of the hall, face pale, eyes hollow. He didn't feel anger anymore, only pity. Kamsi smirked and whispered, "Mama, we won." Ngozi smiled, resting her hand on his cheek. "No, my son. We didn't just win. We showed the world that dignity cannot be bought or destroyed." The Ferrari's engine roared to life, echoing like thunder. As the car pulled away, the cheers of the crowd followed them into the Lagos night, and inside the empty banquet hall, Obinna sat alone, his empire crumbling, his pride shattered. For the first time, he understood the truth. Money could buy power, but it could never buy respect.